up, you beautiful people? Welcome to the Shane Vitko Podcast. I'm your host, you guessed it, Shane Vitko. Fucking A, it's been a while, man. And it's super strange not having a co-host and just having a look at a fucking camera like a psychopath and know that I'm talking to human beings that aren't here. But I think really that was part of the reason why it's been tougher for me to consider doing this, because it's like going to a sixth grade dance. Like when my friends were going, cool, I can't wait, we can all roll together. But to think about having to roll up to the sixth grade dance by myself, nerd. And I feel like that's what I always did well with. I did well with Andrew. I did well with Tommy. Any podcast I've been a guest off, because there's a fucking physical human being there, right? But the more I was thinking about this, and if you had asked me a month ago, do you want to start a podcast? I would have said, no, it's not the right time. And, you know, maybe one day. And the reality is that when I moved to Texas from LA, I spent all this money on podcast shit and tried to make a podcast studio and did maybe 2 episodes. I think Kat and I tried to film 1 episode of Boston and the Brit, and that was that. And then that room just sat. And a couple weeks ago, I sold a bunch of podcast shit, but I held on to enough stuff for if I had the itch, right? And I didn't have the itch. But the fucking universe has a funny way of making things happen. And I had multiple people reaching out to me at the same point about, when are you going to do a podcast? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And ultimately I just said, fuck it. Let's run it. You know, let me just do my best to try to set something up. And the hard way home sounded like something that made sense to me. Right. So I'm done wishing. I'm done fucking wishing. And here we are. My old man used to say to me, wish in one hand, shit in the other, and let me know what you get first. So I don't want to wish. I don't want to wish I started a podcast. I don't want to wish I had been a platform to reach people who feel fucking hopeless or have taken the hard way home and have now made something of their life, right? Where once upon a time it seemed like there's not a fucking chance. My ceiling is here, and that's it, and I accept that. And I'll just be stuck on this fucking hamster wheel for life. And that's not the case. That's not what you did. I know that's not what happened for me. So here we are. Let's see what we got. So yeah, so I left when we left LA and we moved to Texas. Give me a second. I'm a cool guy that has coffee. My wife's fancy mugs. So what had happened too was when we moved to Texas, I think I started to lose my purpose and confidence, I guess, that I had in LA. LA was just so much more with production shit and movies and acting and just all that shit that comes with LA, and it hypes you up, I think. And then when I moved to Texas, that kind of went away. And I think I settled for, like, you know, I'll be this suburban husband, dad, and just kind of fucking mesh into the everyday life that is here, right? But again, we say fuck that. So life has obviously shifted for me. I am married now. My daughter will be 3 in December. And what a life, man. What a fucking life. So people have asked me too, why not re-spark up Deviant Gentlemen? Why not do the podcast with Tommy? I think it's just, you know, things happen, right? Deviant Gentlemen was fucking awesome. It was a great platform. I had a great time doing it with Andrew. I had a great time doing it with Tommy. I just think due to scheduling and, like, when you're not in the same zip code or the same area where you both can be in studio together, it starts to get tough, right? Especially Tommy's career blew up and now he's doing a lot more with music and all this shit. But 2 things about that is, like, so when Andrew and I stopped doing Deviant Gentlemen, it obviously wasn't a clean break, and we didn't talk for a number of years. We have since talked. We're friends. We've moved on. I accept my part. He accepts his part. It just is what it is, right? I love the kid. I got a lot of love for him. Same thing with Tommy, right? Like, I still talk to Tommy, not as much as I did, obviously, but we keep in touch. He's doing well. Super fucking happy for him. And I hope to have both of them on here as a guest in the future. So that's the fucking Deviant Gentlemen, Tommy Andrews situation. And why the hard way home? I think every choice that I've made in life, and it's been a choice, most of it, I'd say 80% choice, 20% has just happened. But I chose the fucking hard way, right? I chose the hard way in school. I chose the hard way when I did time. When I was locked up, I could have just fucking kept my mouth shut, gone to minimum security, got a job, ate some fucking snacks, and called it a day. Nope. Instead, I want to be in the fucking mix. I want to get sent to the max. I want to do all that maximum security bullshit, right? I chose the fucking hard way a lot of the time. Same thing with addiction, with using drugs, right? Everything was the hard way. I would go to these treatment centers, get kicked out, fight them at every fucking chance I could, more meds, do this, do that, the fucking hard way every single time, until I got sober. August 23rd, 2018. I think that was when I got sober this time, was the first time that I finally wasn't like, let me make this as fucking hard as possible. I started to listen. I started to take direction, and then ultimately asked other men for help, right? Which I heard someone say the other day was, can you ask another man to help you do something you already know how to do? And I was like, fucking mind blown, right? Another one of my friends always says, we always get choices, right? Most things come down to two choices, maybe more. We are in charge of our choices. What we can't control is the consequences. And that's where I thought I could play God, right? Where it's like, this is the choice I'm going to make, and I will control the fucking consequence. Or I'm so smart that my choice, I will outsmart the consequence. And what a fucking tough way to live, because when that didn't pan out and I didn't get to choose the fucking consequence, now what? Now I'm full of resentment, anger, hate, rage, all this shit of like, it's not fucking fair. It's not fair if, you know, and then it's the fucking poor me. Well, because my mom died, because I'm into heroin, because I'm a veteran, because whatever it is, I start to make up all these excuses for why it's everyone else's fault and not my own. So the hard way home for me, and what is home? It's not like actually a physical house. Home to me is like this inner peace, right? Being okay with who I am today, knowing that I'm waking up, being present, being a present dad, being a present husband, being a fucking decent neighbor to my neighbors, right? Always looking for like, how can I help somebody instead of hurt them? How do I not make somebody's day more shitty? I definitely still struggle with that in traffic. And that's a whole other fucking, I thought LA was the shittiest drivers. Houston is fucking right up there with these people. Let's see what else. I feel like too, it's like, it's not to say that everybody has, you know, some people had like it fucking easy. I get that a lot of people had it hard, and like, you know, I did, people be like, hey, I had a hard road home, but, I didn't use fucking drugs. That's awesome. Congratulations. Way to fucking go. Start a podcast about how you took the fucking hard way home and didn't use drugs. I don't know what to tell you. But I feel like a lot of people, and it doesn't, not just fucking guys with records, it's not just veterans, it's not people that only use drugs. I feel like there's a lot of people in day-to-day life who chose the fucking, or chose the hard way, or were handed the hard way. And the bottom line is, like, I know plenty of people that are in the fucking ground. I know plenty of people that are never coming home from prison. And then I know a lot of people now who have taken all these fucking hits, somehow are still standing, and then finally said enough is enough. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. I'll tell you about my story, about what the things that I've done to better my life and have this kind of sense of peace and being okay with myself. Almost, you know, going on 8 years sober now. And then everyone that I've met along the way, I'm going to bring on people that I went to school with that have known me since fucking childhood, people that I've met along my travels. Some you may know, some you may not. Either way, it's like, I feel like everybody's got a story to tell, and there's people out there that need to know that they're not alone. Because I felt so unique and so different for so long. Like, you're not going to fucking understand. Maybe you understand this, but you don't understand that. And because of that, fuck you. I don't want your advice. I don't want any of your fucking cool t-shirts or your fucking hugs. I'm all set. You know, I needed to be relatable. I needed to find other people that I could relate to. And I found that. And I'll talk to you guys more about that. Why? I'll tell you what I'm not here to do is like, you know, the fucking wake up at 4 a.m., get motivated, fucking say your affirmations, go for a 4-mile run, eat 7 eggs. I mean, those guys exist. That shit's out there. If that's what you're into, go for it. That wouldn't have worked for me in the beginning. Even as a military guy, as a, you know, quote unquote, wanting to be so alpha and all this shit, the minute you're like, make me feel like, if you're not doing this, motherfucker, blah, blah, go fuck yourself. And I want to fight you. Even if I know you beat the shit out of me, I still want to fight you because of that. So we ain't doing that. And here's the deal, man. If you're still breathing, you still got time to change. It's never too late. I know a lot of guys that are in there. I'm 45 now. You know, I'm not a fucking little kid. A lot of people think maybe, you know, it's why? For what? What's the point? All right, we had a little bit of a fucking hiccup there. So I had to hit pause and start over, re-record, because fucking that's what we do. We fly by the seat of our ass sometimes. So anyways, like I was saying, it's never too late, right? What I recommend is if you are a younger person, like it took me, I was 38 when I finally decided to take control or, you know, start to do something about it, right? Not be sit in a pity party and it's not fair and, you know, live in that world, poor me. What I know from working in treatment and from being around for a little bit is that the longer you do wait, the harder it becomes, right? If you think about your parents, for instance, like when, you know, my dad later in life, for me to try to convince him to have different worldviews or to do things differently was a lot tougher than it would be someone younger, you know? And for me, it's like I have to live with regret, right? My dad passed in June of 24, maybe. So, you know, a little over a year and some change. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I was sober when he died. I'm grateful that I could be there for him and be by his side and all those things. However, I always live with this thing of like, I wish I had got it together again, wish in one hand, shit in the other, right? But had I got my life together sooner, I would have had more time with him, you know? And, you know, so that's something that I struggle with. I feel like if you're younger and you're listening to this, if you're, you know, in your 20s and your 30s, look, I know guys that are 20-something that got sober already. I couldn't even imagine that, you know? And what an inspiration that is. And I'll have some of them on the show too. Because what an inspiration to be 20-something and see the direction that your life is headed. Like I saw that direction and still did nothing about it. Or I thought just on willpower alone, or I'll figure out a way, or it, you know, this will end eventually. And next thing you know, 10 years passes, 20 years pass. And it's like, holy fuck, how am I still doing this shit? You know? So I think, you know, like I said, if you're younger, now is the time to start thinking about what you want to do so that you're not sitting here at 40 or 40-something or 50-something. Because I tell you, when I worked in treatment and I had older clients, it becomes a lot harder to, like I said in the beginning, would you take advice from another man telling you how to do something you already know how to do? Because once you're set in your ways and you know everything, it becomes a lot tougher. So it's really learning about how do I take this mask off? How do I cut the bullshit? How do I start to address trauma? I'm a huge trauma guy, by the way. And how do I start learning how to live, right? Because I didn't even know how to do that. Like, you know, all these steps that it took when I finally got a vehicle and got insurance and started to get a paycheck with taxes taken out of it, and then buy an apartment. And then like when I got the apartment, my first apartment when I got in LA, well, not my first, but you know, in sobriety, and you forget these things of like, oh yeah, now I got to get a bed. Now I got to get a coffee table. Now I got to get a bureau or a dresser. Now I got to get a television. Or even more so is like, oh yeah, there's no fucking ketchup and mustard in the refrigerator. I don't have a spatula. I don't have a fork or a spoon. I have no mugs. All this shit. Oh, I have to get laundry detergent. Like I had always lived Like prison, here you go. Here's everything that you need. Here's all the things that, it's kind of hard to fuck that up. Same thing with the military, right? Anything that's structured, or any program that I've been in, anything that's structured, here's the laundry room, here's a big ass thing of soap. Figure it out, right? But as soon as it was on me and left to me to go do these things, I was like a deer in headlights, And I feel like that's another thing that starts to take people out, is because you go like, okay, I'm good, I feel good, I'm sober, I'm in sober living, all these things are well. Or even if you're not in sober living, I've been sober for a little bit, and like things, I'm starting to get a life back. But life comes on really quickly, right? And all these things that are your responsibility is like, holy shit, when I got sober is when I really realized, like, I don't know how to live, dude. I don't know how to just be a regular human being that goes to work, that comes home, that puts gas in their car, that comes home, takes care of responsibilities. Never mind if you add a pet to the mix now, or a fucking plant, something else that you have to take care of. What can happen is, if you're not kind of taking these steps, it becomes overwhelming, right? And then it's like that self-talk again of like, I don't know, why did I think I could do this? I'm a piece of shit. I don't know how to be a human being. Let me do what I know how to do, which is do drugs, have no responsibilities. Taking a shower doesn't become top of the list. Brushing your teeth doesn't become top of the list, and it's like starting with these small things. It's why in sober living they tell you to make your bed every day. It seems redundant, and why? Who gives a shit if I make my bed? But what I've found is that when you start to put in these small little disciplines of routine and making better habits and making better choices, ultimately that helps you to learn how to do all these other things, which is have a vehicle, buy it, save money, open a bank account. It's all these things that maybe to most people seem so simple. I was so, it's flabbergasted the word. I was so shocked by that. I remember when I first got to AA. I'm in AA. I don't give a fuck about press, radio, and film either, by the way. I'm not here to promote that shit, I'm just here to tell you my story and the things that have worked for me. But anyways, I remember when I first started going to meetings in LA, and I would see these guys roll up in these fancy cars and have fancy clothes and all this shit, and be like, this isn't fair. Like, how the fuck do you get that stuff? You must have not had it as bad as me if you have all this shit figured out, right? And it's like, well, actually, I come to find out a lot of them did have it as bad as me, if not worse. So I started to ask questions. How do I get credit? How do I fix my credit? How do you save up money for a car? How do you get any of these things? And, I never lived under this like thing of, if something costs $5,000, I wasn't like, okay, I have to start saving every month X amount of dollars until I get $5,000 to buy this thing. My brain worked like, how do I get $5,000 today to get that thing? Let me rob, let me steal, let me do something that gives me that instant gratification and that quick fix, that fast cash. And the first big purchase that I made was when I bought my wife her engagement ring. And I remember saving for that and working and putting money aside. And then when I finally had it all, to go there and go to the jeweler and have the ring made. And maybe it seems small, but to me, that was such a feat, right? Like, I was like, I can't believe that I was actually able to do this. And people are doing that every single day. And that's what made me feel a little bit stupid, Like, how have people, when did you figure out how to do this? And how did I miss that class, So anyways, look, this is really tough to do when it's just solo. But I wanted to do this because it's a solo podcast, and I'm going to do more of these that are just by myself. And I'm going to have guests too. And the ones where I have guests, I will say way less and have, more of a conversation, because I like I said in the beginning, I flourish and do well when I have another human being that I'm interacting with. To just sit here and constantly try to remember to look at the camera and not say fucking and remember what I'm talking about and not look at fucking notes and all this shit. It's challenging. I give a lot of people props that are already doing this kind of thing, that have their own platform, and don't always have that buffer of having somebody there, because it's not easy. So with that said, I think that's it. I think that's it for episode 1. I'm happy to be back. I can't wait to kind of get into this more and start talking about some shit that's, people aren't talking about. I got a story to tell. You guys got a story to tell. This podcast is for me and it's for you, So that's all I got. This is The Hard Way Home. Welcome back.